Hello, and welcome to another riveting episode of The Devil's Advocate. I'm your host, Mitchell Drayton, and today we're diving into a world of cinematic what-ifs. Ever watch a movie and wonder what you would do if the script were flipped? Well, now's your chance. Chime in, share your thoughts, and let's unravel those alternate realities together. Don't forget to check out the polls, drop your comments, and hit the notification bell so we can stay in touch. And let's have a fantastic time. Let's go. Welcome back, everybody. Today's movie is going to be none other than Snowpiercer. Now, this movie came out in 2014, and it stars none other than Captain America and Gandalf. Now, I'm just playing when it comes to that. There's actually, the star is going to be Chris Evans, playing the person whose name is Curtis in the movie. Now, this is like a post-apocalyptic world where we're talking about kind of real-world scenarios mixed with, of course, some fiction, where the global warming has become so dire that it has to be taken care of, that they create a scientific way to take care of it. Now, this is a bunch of countries have banded together and said, we're going to release this type of chemical into the atmosphere, and this is going to cool the earth. Now, in theory, I guess it was a very good plan, but unlike most scientific experiments, I guess it wasn't thought through. There was no thesis. Nothing was actually played out in a smaller scenario with controls or even just variables. And they released it, and it just chilled the entire world over. Well, in the midst of that, Wilford, the guy who is in love with trains and ultimately is kind of like the villain, but also the hero at the same time, connects all of the train tracks throughout the entire world. And his, I guess, train system and train is the only one that is functioning and can go on all these tracks. And what he does is, I think he strums together about 101 cars, something close to that. And there's going to be hierarchies within the train. And if this is starting to make sense, this is kind of no different than the world is run now, with the different hierarchies with blue collar, white collar, and then you have, if you want to call them your elites or, very rich or wealthy individuals. That's the same way that the train is then built out. So they do start off, of course, with we'll call them the lower income. They're at the tail end of this train, and they're being fed what looks like Jello. I mean, they're just like dark, kind of purpley types of gelatin. And they just tell them, hey, come on, food's ready, come and grab it. So everyone grabs one bar of this gelatin, and that's all they get to eat for the day. Now, it doesn't show whether or not they come by once, twice, or 3 times a day. Of course, it's just going to kind of speed this stuff up because it wasn't that important to the plot of the movie. But it'll play a role a little bit later on. And they do count these, I will tell people, I guess the poor or the lowest of the hierarchy in the train every day. And they tell them, hey, sit down, sit down. And there's another group of people that are coming and doing that, and they do have weapons of such. And while doing so, there is one person, of course, Curtis, the guy who is Chris Evans, is just kind of a hard hit. He's counting the doors and the gates that open as these other individuals come through back to the tail end of the train, because he's trying to find out a way out of there. Now, before Curtis, there was someone else 4 years prior to that. And according to Curtis, they used up all the bullets and the guns that they're now waving around and using as a device to control them. Now, what happens is, one of the guys from the front train is being told he needs to go to the end of the train and find a violinist. Well, they ask, and it just so happens that a couple comes forward. And the husband's like, hey, my wife and I were in some type of quartet, and we play very well. Take us. He says, nope, only need you, only want you. He said, well, then I'm not going. Well, because of that, the guy takes the butt of his gun, hits the wife, breaks her nose, and then steps on her hands. Well, there you go. Now she can't play. They only take him, and he goes to the front of the train, essentially. And he does, before he goes, he says, I'll be back. Well, let's just go ahead and get that over with. He does not come back 100%. So a little bit of a spoil there. If you have seen the movie, then you know how this goes. If you have not seen the movie, Once again, I would urge you to go and see it. It is a really good one, and it does make you think. The reason why it does make you think is because, once again, the hierarchy that's in the train is the same type of hierarchy that we sometimes live with. All right, so after that, we've already talked about the violinists. We talked about like the Jello cubes that they use as sustenance. It's gross, to be honest with you, but it's what they need though. But within the Jello, there are like little bullet type things, and Curtis is looking for these on somewhat of a daily basis, if not weekly basis, and they have, little notes inside of them. And he opens them up and he's like, yep, right now is not the time. We're not going to revolt. We just need more time. I'm waiting for the next note. And then eventually they come back to the end of the train once again, and they're like, hey, we need 2 kids. They're like, what? Now, they were about to revolt because they're like, hey, I can't wait any longer. But because they came, back there and they weren't doing a head count, they were just looking for kids, they startled them, and they all had to kind of jump up in front of this large, like, tube contraption that they were going to use to kind of pin all the doors and the gates open with. So they grab one kid, and the guy's like, no, this is my son. You can't have him. And then before leaving, there was like a noise in the back of the train. So they go to see what it is, and they find out that one of the mothers is hiding her child. And they snatch the kid up, and she measures him. I guess they're looking for the length of arm, the height of the child, because I guess they need them for something. The guy then, upset that they take his child, he takes off his boot or his shoe, and he throws it at this lady that is measuring the kids. Hits her in the forehead, draws blood out. And so because of that, they're like, nope, we got to make an example out of this guy. So what do? They take him, they let everyone see what they're doing. They clamp his arm into this metal device, and they open up like a little window on the side of the train. Now, once again, like I said, the outside atmosphere is all froze over. They said the time that we're going to need at this elevation is just 7 minutes. And they stick his arm out, and they kind of seal it. They kind of turn it, and it has like a locking noise, and he starts to scream a little bit, but then I guess it just it's so cold, it numbs over so fast that this individual stops feeling his arm. And then there's this lady with some very grotesque-like features. I will say she's probably from another movie that you've seen. Just gives a whole speech. And then they eventually get to the end of that speech, and they go on the metaphor of, I guess, the fact that the shoe is just 10 inches of chaos, and that everyone needs to stay within their respective places. You are needed at the rear or the tail of the plane. I am at the head of the train, and we all have a purpose, and we need to maintain that purpose and maintain our areas. So anyways, they take his arm back out of that little window, and they take a huge mallet and they just smash it and break it to pieces. And of course, throughout the rest of the movie, he is without that arm. And that was how he paid for his insurrection, if you want to call it, against throwing that boot against those that I guess are above him in the hierarchy of the train. But after doing this and then taking the kids, they essentially can't take anymore, and they do start the revolt. Like, they start a riot essentially, and they take that very large type of contraption, like it was like barrels strummed together, and they start beating up some of the, we'll call them cops, and they make their way through several gates before they make it to, I guess, the jail part of the train. And when they do this, they have to find this one individual. I think his name's called Namgung or Namgong or something to that effect. And they're like, hey, we have to pay this guy to get us to the front of the train because he was the head of security, and he is also the reason why the security is the way that it is. So since he knows the train, he can get us through each gate. Now, the only, I guess, bad part about it is that this guy is kind of like a junkie, where they have all of the waste that's on this train gets compressed down into these little balls, these little chemical balls. And some people on the train, they sniff them, and it makes them hallucinate. And so he is high off that all the time. So he is kept in what looks like the metal containers that keep in the mortuary. And he just stays in there. But he says the only way that I'm going to do it is if my daughter can come along with me. Well, the daughter is also a junkie off of this drug-like substance, and they are like, well, we're so in dire needs, go ahead, we don't care, we'll give you both one each for each door that you open. Now they continue to make themselves way, through more and more gates. There was no one there, and the girl was kind of like, yeah, I know there's no one there, go ahead and open that door. And then the next gate, she says, there's a guy running, and they open the gate, and sure enough, there's a guy running towards them. He jumps up and he twists not a lever, but like I don't know, it's like some type of device that opens up a barrel of some sorts, and he's just out of his mind. He's talking to himself, and he just can't slow down. He's like, oh, this used to be all automatic, now I have to do it manually. And one of the guys just starts to wander around there, and there's this big vat that is above the bars that I guess he's making. So they took him from the tail on the train. He is now pretty much like the kitchen aid, if you want to call it that, and he's making the bars that they consume. Well, they go up into that vat, and there's an open window, and they look into it, and the guy gasps. Well, then Curtis, of course, can't resist. He goes up there as well, and he does the same thing, and is mortified to see that the protein bars that they're eating are nothing more than a bunch of like mulched up crickets. And yeah, exactly. If anyone has ever heard about how in the future, if we continue to, I guess, consume the food in the manner that we are, at the rate that we are, we're going to have to kind of use bugs to offset that, because we can only kill so many cows, we can only kill so many chickens, so many fish, so on and so forth. And we're going to have to start using crickets or insects in order to make sure that we don't run out of too much food and we can continue to sustain life as we know it. Now, they do continue on, and as they go through another gate, or they're about to go through this gate, the girl, the daughter, I guess he finds out that she's kind of clairvoyant and that she can see things before they happen, and she says at the last minute, don't open this door. But it's too late. The father opens the door, and there's a bunch of masked men on the other side with a bunch of tools, like hatchets and things like that, to do a lot of bodily harm. Now, it almost seems like they were waiting for him, but I'll let you determine that when you watch the movie. Now, they do start to fight one another, and there is pretty much an equal share of blood spilled. And then eventually there's an announcement made on a speakerphone to say that, hey, the bridge is coming. And they all stop, and they count down from 10 all the way to 1, and then they say Happy New Year. Odd, I know, right? Now, would you do something like that? Let's ask that. That's the first question, I guess. If you were in the middle of a fight, doesn't matter if it was just, two people with their fists, two people with knives or guns. If someone just started counting down and then they said Happy New Year, would you stop or would you continue on? That's the first question. And then after doing so, they decided that, hey, we're going to put on our NVGs. Now, NVGs are short for saying night vision goggles, right? And the security officer says, hey, you guys are screwed because there's a huge tunnel after this bridge and you're not going to be able to see, essentially. And that's exactly what happens. They put their NVGs on. There is like another villain, this lady, once again, I think her name was Gilliam. She shows up and says that, 74% of you guys will pass away because we're going to take you out now. And the slaughter begins. I mean, it gets super dark. They cut all the lights off on the train and they can't see anything. So they're just waving, erratically, trying to hit whatever they can, but they're just getting chopped down left and right. And then all of a sudden, Curtis says, we need fire, bring the fire. And it starts off with this little kid that has this match. He lights a stick on fire, and it's almost like the Olympics. Like he's starting to run towards through the train from the tail section up to the front. And then eventually the guy whose arm got broken off, he grabs it, and it's a little hysterical. But he's laughing and rambling on. And then another guy grabs it from him and then continues on running to the front. And all of a sudden, all you see is like there's about 10 to 20 different torches, like they're going after Frankenstein or something like that. And the guys with NVGs, of course, are blinded. They got to take those off. But because of that, they're kind of stunned. And then the people from the tail of the train gain the upper hand. And they start to, once again, it's an uneven battle. And they start to move or progress towards the front of the train once again. Now, before doing so, one of the guys that was carrying that torch tosses a knife and hits this lady, the Gilliam lady, in the kind of like the buttocks area, so she can't walk essentially because she's in so much pain. Now, Curtis has a right-hand man, and his name is Edgar. Now, Edgar was progressing along with him, but eventually Curtis is stuck between either getting to Gilliam, who can pretty much put a stop to all this, or at least get him towards the front part of the train, or go back and save his friend Edgar, who got caught up with someone else and who pretty much has him a knife to his throat. Now, there's like a couple of seconds of him looking at Gilliam, and you can see the decision tree happening, and he's kind of like, I am going to go after Gilliam. I'm sorry, but we didn't come this far, and I guess the sacrifice is going to be worth it. Now, let's pause right here. Would you go after one of the other villains, or would you save, I guess, Edgar, your right-hand man, to keep him safe? Second question, right? Go after the other villain, or save somebody that's been with you probably for all of 18 years, because that's how long they've been on this train at this point. All right, so he goes after Gilliam, of course, and he gets her, and then finds out that, yes, this other villain guy does take Edgar's life, and he is, strung on the ground. Now, Gilliam has the power to tell everyone to stop, and they do so. And then the people, I guess the lower end of the hierarchy, end up getting the upper hand once again. And he chains Gilliam up, and they start to walk through the train. And she pretty much just says, hey, I know you won't trust me, but I just want to live. And when you get to the beginning of the train, I need you to kill Wilford just so that I can survive. I don't know how it was so easy for her to flip on him, but she did say he was so merciful and how he provides all. It was just weird. You shouldn't flip that easily just to say that I want to live. But hey, it is, what is it called? Self-preservation. There you go. That's exactly what she was doing. But as they start to go through, like I said, they had a jail in there. There's another part of the train where they have a garden, and there's like tomatoes and like limes or something like that. Or there's just a whole bunch of fresh fruits. They go through an aquarium. All kinds of fish within this train car. They have a spa area, which was crazy. They have a hot tub area. And then they also have like a butcher area. So a whole bunch of meats, the chickens and stuff like that are all being like chopped down so they can, I guess prepare all the foods that they have to have for all the people that are on this train. And then there's also like, well, I just call it the rich lounge, because it was just a whole bunch of people getting fitted up for suits. They're in these fancy behind dresses, drinking all kinds of cocktails. They have a full-on bar in here, and it's 2 stories, like just wilding out essentially on this train. You wouldn't even believe something like this could happen. Well, once again, it's broken up into the hierarchies, no different than we have now. We have the super elites, and then those that can barely afford groceries, let alone diapers for their own children. They do get to a part that was kind of eerie, which is the school part. And they're worshiping, of course, Wilford for the fact that he built the train and he's keeping them alive. And they have a special, I guess, token of appreciation that comes from Wilford, and in the form of fresh eggs. And they said that these were heated up by water that was warmed by the train. So everyone starts to collect, and it's almost like in a baby bassinet or some sort, or a stroller, and there's just a crap ton of eggs in there. Well, one is handed deliberately to Curtis, and guess what? It has another note in there. And so he slowly unravels that, but they keep on showing how everyone else is grabbing eggs, and one of the teachers gets a basket, and then the guy continues to the back side of the train, to the lower part where all the, they call them the scum, is what the kids inside the school did. And they sort of give them eggs. And then Curtis opens this note, and it says blood. And the guy says that, well, a lot of things were thought to be extinct, and it's not just chickens. And he pulls out a gun, and he starts blasting away. He's just killing all these people, because at this point they have pipes and stuff, but it stands nothing against this gun that he has. And then he frees some of the other bad guys that were, tied up on the grounds, and there's even more guns within that basket. The basket that he handed to the teacher, there was like a machine gun in there, and she starts to shoot off inside there and kills the guy that had his arm taken off, when they put it outside the train. And then, of course, the same guy that threw the knife into the buttocks of Gilliam ends up throwing another knife into her neck and puts her down. And they were able to, I guess, regain control. But at the back end of the train, they're not so lucky. They do get slain for the most part. But Curtis is able to kind of regain control and continue on towards the front part of the ship. But he does take a moment to take the gun that was left, and he puts one right in Gilliam's head. And then we don't see her, of course, anymore. They do progress towards the end of the front of the train, and there's one more section where everyone is doing the same drug that the other guy was put in jail for, the security guy. I think it's called Chronos, or Chronal is the name of this drug that they're all sniffing and hallucinating about. So there's like two sections. One section where the party, they're drinking, they're sniffing this drug. So of course, Namgong or Namgoong, however you say his name, is just collecting all of them. And you're like, man, he's a really bad addict, that he needs all this stuff. And he collects it all, and his daughter helps him with it. They get to the next train, and it's just a whole bunch of them just kind of passed out, but they have even more of this drug. And then they finally get to the last, or the front car, where they can't get in. And Curtis says, hey, I need you to open this door. And Namgong says, no, I don't want to. You guys thought I was just sniffing this stuff. I was collecting this for years, because not only does it make you hallucinate, but it is all of the waste, and it is a explosive. So he mends it all together and then sticks a kind of like a rope inside of it. And he's like, I'm going to set this on fire, and I'm going to blow this door on the side of the train off, versus going through here and trying to dismantle the entire train. So they have a bout there for a little bit, but eventually what happens is one of the ladies that's in the front car with Mr. Wilford comes out and shoots Namgong and invites Curtis inside, where they have a conversation about how the guy that's at the end of the train was in cahoots with him, and how they had to incite certain things to happen. So the riots that happened in the past, and even the one that he's currently on, they had to make sure that he did what he had to do so they can control the population. He said they didn't have time for people to die naturally. They had to do other things in order to make sure the population stayed down, because there's only so much to feed them. And if they didn't do it, everyone would suffer and pay the price for it. So once again, if you want to dive deeper into this, you definitely can, and try to understand like how this has kind of like a double meaning, or it's not just about the movie itself. It's a little bit deeper than that. But essentially, it was like, yeah, I didn't do this on my own. There were more people that helped me out. Now, I don't know about you, but what do you think? What if this could be true? What if we use this same type of decision making with the world that we live in today? Now, do you think that somebody could be that cruel to where they would release a virus, or that they would incite war in order to keep our population in control, to make sure that, I guess, the animals and things that we feed off of are able to populate enough to continue to feed us? Is that possible? What do you think? This is one of those what if moments. What if what they're doing, or what they're saying or portraying in this movie, Snowpiercer, is actually have some truth to it? That wraps up this episode of The Devil's Advocate. I'm your host, Mitchell Drayton. Thanks for diving into the what if with me. Now it's your turn. Drop your thoughts, hit the polls, leave a comment, and keep the conversation going, people. Until next time, stay curious and stay questioning.